The best states on the morality index that I did 2 years ago, okay, best state in America on the God's Law Morality Index, the best state in America was Texas.
I hope so. That's why I'm living here. I'm loving it.
Of course, you hope so. The worst state is Colorado, or I guess, yeah, we're the second worst. So I'm in one of the very worst states, and you're in the best state. Now, how does that work out?
I think it makes for good co-hosting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
a little balance.
That's why I'm shaking as much as I am. And you're just sitting there relaxing and laughing and enjoying yourself. Welcome, my friends, to the Generations broadcast. Kevin Swanson, your host, with you as well, Adam McManus. And he is the host of theworldview.com, which is our daily worldview update on the news from a distinctly Christian perspective. And today, I want to talk about religious liberty. This is one of the more interesting stories that I've seen. It came in the Worldview news update just last week. I think it was Jonathan that wrote this report, Jonathan Clark. And Florida has the best religious liberty in the nation, and West Virginia is the worst in the nation, according to this report that was issued just recently by First Liberty.
That surprised me. I would not imagine West Virginia would be on the bottom. I would think it would have been Illinois, Oregon, Colorado, but not West Virginia.
It's eye-opening, and I think this is Kelly Shackelford's organization, First Liberty, if I'm not mistaken.
First Liberty Institute came up with religious liberty in the states. In fact, they've been doing this now for only 4 years. I hope people will take a moment when they get a chance today to visit the website and look at the specifics of your state and how your state has either risen or fallen in the religious liberty index and what your legislators might consider to do better. The website, again, is religiouslibertyinthestates.com.
Right. It turns out that the best state in America is Florida, as far as religious liberties are concerned. Now, the indexes were, the government's Religious Freedom Restoration Act, whether or not they've incorporated that into their states, under healthcare general conscience protection for Christian doctors, abortion refusal for Christian doctors, sterilization refusals, contraception refusal, euthanasia refusal, recusal of counseling provider, health insurance mandates, also for-profit businesses that do not want to participate in wedding ceremonies. They can opt out in these particular states that do well on this index. No religious discrimination in financial service and insurance provision for those who perhaps do not want to be, providing insurance for their organizations that would provide for abortifacients or abortions. Clergy as mandatory reporters, ceremonial use of alcohol by minors, houses of worship protected from closing. That would be handy if we ever come upon a COVID, 27 or whatever. Also, non-participation in weddings by clergy. So if a clergy does not want to officiate a wedding of two homosexuals, they can, of course, opt out for that.
Or a throuple. That's going to be the next horizon. 3 people want to get married.
Well, that's true, too, right? Or whatever. Also, for some families want to have some exemptions for immunizations. That is provided for in some states. Also, no religious discrimination, foster parent eligibility. That, by the way, that is increasingly the case in states like Oregon, California, Washington State, etc. You find there is a fair amount of religious discrimination against people who want to foster parent or even people who want to adopt. You find there's increasing levels of discrimination against Christians. What's unique about this is that, there was a period of time in history in which we would not need these sorts of things. We live in an increasingly post-Christian, anti-Christian age in which, we have these various legal defense organizations that step in to protect Christians who do not want their conscience violated as doctors, as, small business owners, et cetera. They don't want to violate their consciences and participate in homosexual weddings or whatever. And so, Kelly Shackelford and the team from First Liberty are introducing this particular report. I think it's helpful. Now, the best states in the union, as far as this is concerned, is Florida. That's number one. Montana, Illinois is number three. Number three, best in the nation for religious liberties.
We've got a great clip from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis when he made that announcement that day.
Yeah, so let's listen to that. He's pretty happy with Florida being the number one in the nation on religious liberty.
But today, Florida has earned the number one ranking amongst all 50 states for protecting religious liberty. And if you go back to the founding of our country, religious liberty was basically the first freedom that the founding fathers sought to protect. And of course, religious freedom was part of the reason people even settled in the American colonies to begin with. So this is something that is central to the American experiment and central to our way of life. But it is something that has really been under assault in recent years.
Now, DeSantis rightly said that, this thing's been under assault. Religious liberties and the consciences of doctors, of pastors, of small business owners, they have been the object of incredible attacks. You think about Jack Phillips here in the Colorado area, who wishes not to produce, cakes to support homosexual weddings, has been in court how many times? I can't count. 6, 8, 10, 12 times over the last 10 years. He has been so much molested by these various pro-homosexual organizations and individuals. Very, very sad. But there are states that are protecting guys like Jack Phillips. And evidently, the best states in the union for protecting religious liberty for these individuals are Florida, Montana, Illinois, Ohio, Mississippi, Arkansas, South Carolina, Washington, Utah, Tennessee, Arizona, Maryland, and Idaho. Quite a mix.
It is.
It's interesting. There's about half of these are fairly conservative states, blue states, or red states. The other half are blue states. I mean, it's kind of almost a 50-50 on this. Does that surprise you, Adam?
It does. I mean, Illinois is number 3, but it dropped from being number 1. Illinois is as blue as it gets, but apparently they've done right by the religious liberties of their citizens, and they're to be commended for that.
The worst states are West Virginia, Wyoming, Michigan, Nebraska, Vermont, New York, North Carolina, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. Now, let's see, Wyoming, West Virginia to some extent, Nebraska, and South Dakota and North Carolina are typically seen as somewhat conservative states. 5 out of the top 10 worst states for religious liberty in America are conservative, are somewhat conservative, or actually fairly conservative states. I think of Nebraska, South Dakota, Wyoming. These are typically seen as fairly conservative states, and yet when it comes to religious liberty, I guess not.
In last place, West Virginia, they did make some progress by passing a Religious Freedom Restoration Act in 2023. Montana moved up significantly, a 30% change going upward because they decided to pass conscience rights in healthcare professionals, meaning that no doctor, nurse, or medical assistant should be compelled to participate in either abortion or some kind of transgender hormones altering drugs, or even the mutilating surgeries if it violates their religious convictions. And South Carolina also had about a 29% increase upward, as did Florida. But you would think that Florida is getting an A or a B, but interestingly, the actual percentage of the score is 74% for Florida at number 1, and West Virginia has a score of 19%. So really, Florida has about a C, and West Virginia has an F minus. But yeah, you think of some of these states that are blue as would be at the bottom, and all the red states would be at the top. But that would be a misunderstanding. And I think it's helpful that First Liberty Institute pulled this together. They say when we began the project, Florida protected a respectable 58% of the 11 safeguards we considered in 2022, was ranked 6th in the nation. Today, it protects 75% of the 20 safeguards we consider and ranked first. Most of its improvement derived from legislation strengthening in Florida in medical conscience protections in 2023 and legislation protecting houses of worship from discriminatory treatments in future pandemics. Now, speaking of your state, Kevin, between 1952 and 2004, Colorado voted for Republicans in 12 of 14 presidential elections. Republicans routinely controlled both houses of the state legislature. So the social environment was pretty friendly toward religious liberty, yet the state legislature during that time did not pass much religious liberty legislation during that period, which helps account for the state's abysmal 43rd place finish in the religious liberty in the state's 2024 state and now 34th finish this year.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Colorado's been pretty much the bottom of the barrel. Now, even way back in the 1960s, Colorado was the first state to bring in abortion. And Colorado was somewhat libertarian initially, turned socialist. In other words, it was somewhat conservative on economic issues, but liberal on social issues. First state to bring in abortion on demand in 1967, signed by Governor Love, who was a Republican governor here in the state of Colorado in 1967. So Colorado has been a shameful, horrible state when it comes to social issues, and turned from libertarian to just liberal, socialist, Marxist. That's typically the way libertarians go over over time. Well, it turns out, friends, that religious liberty exemptions are increasingly provided here and there in some states. Why? Why are we getting these exemptions? Because we as Christians are trying to survive in a post-Christian, pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ society. And some legislators are out there, some heroic legislators are out there trying to carve out a little more freedom space, pitifully small though it may be, and that we live in a post-Christian age. We have these now Christian legal defense organizations across the country. Did not exist in the 1970s, 1980s. Why? Because we have come out of 1,000 years of Christian heritage, but now it's the post-Christian culture in which the enemies of the Christian faith are aligning to eventually persecute Christians, are pressing to persecute Christians. This is their goal. But as we are moving into an increasingly secular, humanist, atheistic, materialistic, anti-supernaturalistic age, we're going to have to deal with higher levels of persecution. Therefore, Christian legal defense organizations have assembled themselves over the last 30 years or so. And today there are at least 6 major national Christian legal defense organizations in the country: Alliance Defending Freedom, Liberty Counsel, Thomas More Society, Christian Legal Society, HSLDA, Pacific Justice Institute, First Liberty Institute, American Center for Law and Justice, Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, and Life Legal Defense Foundation. That's almost 10 major Christian legal defense organizations that did not exist back in the Christian age, but now exists in a post-Christian age in which we are trying to carve out just a little bit of freedom in order to make our own choices as to whether or not we are going to be medical doctors who will perform abortions, whether we're going to be bakers in Denver who have to make cakes for homosexual weddings or not. We are seeking just maybe a little bit of freedom to do what we want with our own talents, gifts, resources, et cetera, et cetera. So again, a little bit of personal liberty for Christians who don't want to get on board with the post-Christian, pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ society that has developed over the last 40 years or so.
In the overview of results, they note that 38 states out of the 50 are doing less than half of what they could be doing. And that's red and blue states alike.
That's pretty miserable. That is pretty miserable.
I mean, as you say,
that's too bad.
These are pretty much common sense bills and laws that we're talking about, giving medical professionals the right to opt out of abortions or transgender surgeries or even euthanasia, or a given small business person from having to be compelled to participate in a homosexual wedding ceremony when it violates their conscience and their religious convictions. These are pretty low fruit that we should be easily able to pass, but 38 states are doing less than half of what is pretty basic.
And this is a side note, but sadly the report did not include one of the liberties that we consider to be precious to us, and that is homeschool freedoms. That evidently was not included in the report, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, friends, the worst state in America, West Virginia and Wyoming, Michigan, Nebraska, as well North Carolina, South Dakota. Best states, Florida, Montana, Illinois, Ohio, Mississippi, Arkansas, South Carolina, Washington, Utah, Tennessee, Arizona, Maryland, and Idaho. Be back with more in just a moment on Generations. The world is filled with irresponsible men, heartless men, treacherous men, dishonorable men, passive men. God is looking you straight in the eye, man, and he's saying, I'm calling you. Brothers, God is discipling us even as we are discipling our children, loving our children, investing in them. Before you ask the purpose for your life, you need to ask yourself, who are you? I'm the servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. He's given me a reason. He's given me a mission for what I'm supposed to do here on planet Earth. Disciple the nations. Begin with your own family. God calls you to be strong. This is the quintessential definition of a manly character in the Bible. God calls us to be strong. God calls us to be consistent, resilient, to stay in the battle, no matter the obstacle, no matter the demonic opposition set against you. It means we're not intimidated by the enemy because God's not intimidated. God is calling you to that. And we are back on the Generations broadcast. Kevin Swanson and Adam McManus. And today, comparing states, and I want to compare nations in just a moment as well. Now, there are a number of indexes, and we just talked about the Religious Freedom Index, but here we also have the Tax Burden Index produced by the taxfoundation.org. This just came out in 2025. Best state for overall tax burden, Wyoming, South Dakota, Alaska, Florida, Montana, New Hampshire, Texas, Tennessee, North Dakota, Indiana, Idaho. Now, that's no surprise. I give you that list. What do you think, Adam? Go, those are conservative states,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
They're the
New
red
Hampshire's
states.
not. New Hampshire's not. But
well, it used to be. Well, what's the motto for New Hampshire? Like live free or die or something?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Now it's live as a slave forever and ever. That's what they are. But still pretty good on tax burden.
Yes.
Okay, just in terms of being conservative on tax burden, sure enough, Wyoming, South Dakota, Alaska, Florida, Montana, New Hampshire, Texas, Tennessee, etc. But then the worst states, Massachusetts. Oh, I think we all knew that would be near the top. Mm-hmm. Hawaii, Vermont, Minnesota, Washington, Maryland, Connecticut, California, New Jersey, and New York. What was the left coast and the other coast, right?
Yes.
Both coasts tend to be bad. Okay.
I do.
Now, I put together a morality index in 2023 on abortion laws, homosexuality laws, divorce rate, and a little bit of state and local spending per gross state product. So I did the evil index, or the morality index. I call it the evil index, based on God's laws. I did this 2 years ago, and Adam, you did this program with me. And just to review, the most evil state on my index was Oregon. The number 2 is Colorado. Number 3, New Mexico. After that comes Vermont, California, New York, Washington, and Maine. The best states on the morality index that I did 2 years ago, okay, best state in America on the God's Law morality index, the best state in America was Texas.
I hope so. That's why I'm living here. I'm loving it.
Of course, you hope so. The worst state is Colorado, or I guess, we're the second worst. So I'm in one of the very worst states, and you're in the best state. Now, how does that work out?
I think it makes for good co-hosting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
A little balance.
That's why I'm shaking as much as I am. And you're just sitting there relaxing,
By the
laughing,
way,
and enjoying yourself.
I think that you should put this out in a press release distributed nationally about the evil index, because I'm telling you, that would get so much attention. I think you could be on the big shows overnight, all the Fox shows and some of the network shows about your evil index, if you got this out there.
Yeah, but I'd have to move from Colorado to Texas if I did that.
You wouldn't have to move.
Of course, we used to be North Texas. Think about it. We used to be North Texas.
I know it.
And then we broke off, and now look at what happened. It's terrible.
What happened?
Okay.
Why did Colorado take this hard turn to the left?
I think it's because of, we're not enjoying the blessing of God. This is the curse of God upon a state. We're the first state to legalize abortion in 1967. I think that has a lot to do with it, Adam. Sure. Yes, we were libertarian, but libertarian states will turn liberal, socialist, Marxist. And that's exactly what's happened to us.
Okay, that's fair.
Best states in America, Texas. Then number 2 is South Dakota. Then Georgia, Alabama, North Dakota, Utah, Idaho, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. A big surprise, West Virginia and Kentucky were some of the worst states.
West Virginia on the bottom.
Very similar to the Religious Liberty Survey. Yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
West Virginia is at the bottom of the barrel, or close to the bottom of the barrel.
State spending is high on both those.
Exactly. So here's what I did for this program. Best state, worst state. Best state for all 3 indexes. Here it is. Ready?
Okay.
Best state for all 3 indexes. I put it all together. Okay? Taxes, morality, religious liberties. Put it all together. Best state in America on all 3 indexes is Tennessee.
Wow.
Number 2, Idaho. Number 3, Texas. 3 base states in America: Tennessee, Idaho, and Texas. Okay. Worst states in America on all 3 indexes. Number 1 worst state in America, Vermont.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they were number 3, number 4, number 5 on the 3 indexes we've looked at today. California, number 8, number 5, number 8 worst states. So California came in number 2, and then New York was number 3. Runner-ups, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. So the 3 worst states in America on all 3 indexes, Vermont, California, and New York, with runner-ups Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. Well, righteousness exalts a state, but sin is a reproach to any people. Mm-hmm. That's the moral of this story. Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalts a nation. Righteousness exalts the states, but sin is a reproach to any people. Well, let me close with this. I know this is going to take a little bit more time. I've got a few more minutes before dinner time. That's coming soon. All right. So we're going to do the International Morality Index, famously known as the International Evil Index, 2025. The last time we did this, Adam, was in 2017. That's 8 years ago.
You've been busy. You've been writing books.
Yeah, you didn't have any gray hair, neither did I.
I've got nothing but gray hair, practically.
Yeah. So the last time we did this was 2017. So the worst nations, best nations in the world, on the basis of Christian persecution, acceptance of homosexuality, prevalence of abortion, illegitimacy rates, and the 8th commandment, corruption and stealing, as it's been institutionalized in bribery and other things. Okay. So full disclosure here, I have weighted Christian persecution at 200%.
All right.
Does that make sense? Sure. I think Christian persecution certainly plays extremely significantly.
Well, that's the canary in the coal
certainly mine. in the view of the Lord Jesus Christ, who is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Shepherd of His church, and He is over all things to the church. That being the case, if you are a nation that persecutes Christians, you're going to be pretty much front and center on the evil index. So I've weighted Christian persecution at 200%. I weighted illegitimacy rates at 50%, and I weighted homosexuality and abortion at 100%. Okay, so that's the weighting. Of the 15 most evil nations in the world, here we go. Let me just give you a couple of thoughts here. Of the 15 most evil nations in the world, 5 are Muslim, 2 are Hindu, 4 are communist, 3 are Catholic, and 1 is Buddhist. Okay? Of the most evil nations in the world, number 1 on the list for these indexes is India. India is the worst nation in the world on the basis of the 4 or 5 indexes I just mentioned.
Okay.
Guess who's number 2? Mexico is number 2. Cuba is number 3. Colombia is number 4. North Korea is number 5. So in the past, North Korea has been number 1, but now the most evil nation in the world is India. Then comes Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, then North Korea, number 5. After that, Vietnam, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, Somalia, Nicaragua, China, and Nigeria. These are the most evil nations in the world on the basis of a study that looked at approximately 150 nations around the world. Now, of the 15 most moral nations in the world, okay, we already talked about the most evil nations in the world on the basis of homosexuality, abortion, persecution of Christians, the Transparency International Index on Corruption and Stealing. So on the basis of these, Mexico, India, Cuba, Colombia, North Korea, Vietnam, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, Somalia, Nicaragua, China, and Nigeria are the worst nations in the world today. The 15 most moral nations in the world, 8 are in Eastern Europe and mostly of Eastern Orthodox worldview type. 2 are from the Middle East. Armenia, that is a Christianity that was embedded in their culture for at least 1,800 years. And Israel. Israel turned out to be fairly strong. So, of the most moral nations in the world, 8 are in Eastern Europe, 2 Middle East, Armenia and Israel. 2 are in Asia, Japan and Singapore. Now, both Japan and Singapore, if you know anything about it, they have been very much influenced by England and America, Protestantism from England and America.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why they maintain something of a moral culture. 2 are from Africa, Malawi and Zimbabwe, both heavily influenced by the Christian faith. 85 to 87% Christian. Zimbabwe or Rhodesia had a huge Christian influence. Sadly, Mugabe pretty much destroyed a lot of it, but remnants still remain to this day. Malawi actually has a strong Christian discipleship movement going on. I've been there twice. Homeschooling is burgeoning throughout Malawi. Malawi and Zimbabwe are two African nations that are very high. They participate in the 15 most moral nations in the world today. Sadly, Christian Westerners have reintroduced homosexuality into Malawi, but actually failed in 2024. A Dutch missionary was consigned to 9 years in prison. He was trying to reintroduce homosexuality to Malawi, but was unable to because Malawi has a fairly strong Christian culture about it. Sadly, it was the Netherlands that was trying to bring homosexuality into the country. So Malawi and Zimbabwe are 2 of the 15 most moral nations in the world. Then there is one nation in South America that makes the top 15 list as the best nations in the world, Belize, which happens to be about 40% Protestant, which is the majority faith in the country right now. So we got Belize, we've got Malawi, Zimbabwe, Japan, Singapore, 8 Eastern European countries, and 2 Middle Eastern countries, Armenia and Israel, as the 15 most moral nations in the world. Now, it's interesting. It is the worldviews that seem to be contributing something to the morality of nations. Right. And it is a deep-seated Protestantism and the Armenian church as well, and some Eastern European Orthodoxy, and of all things, Israel as well, that have retained something of a Christian morality or a biblical morality over a period of, well, in the case of Armenia, 1,800 years. That kind of surprises me. In the case of Eastern Europe, maybe over a period of about 1,200 years. It's interesting that Eastern Europe still has something of a strong Christian culture as opposed to Western Europe. Nations like Spain and Italy and France and England, they have completely lost their Christian influence. Post-Christian nations like Russia and Greenland came up very high on the evil index. So Russia and Greenland were the 2 post-Christian nations of Europe that were at very, very high levels on the evil index. Again, most evil European nations in the world today, Russia and Greenland, at 33 and 61 respectively. Belgium, Sweden, and South Africa also very high on the evil index. The best European nation on the Western side is still Switzerland, coming in as the 21st best country in the world. That's pretty high, actually. The U.S. is the 46th best country in the world. Not real good.
No.
So on the basis of respect for human life, the pro-abortion mentality, the most evil nations on the pro-abortion index are, get this, here are the most anti-life, pro-abortion nations in the world. Here they are. Vietnam, number 1. Then Cuba, then Hong Kong, then Cape Verde, then Greenland, then India, and then South Korea. These are the most evil nations in the world on the basis of respect for human life. Vietnam, Cuba, Hong Kong, Cape Verde, Greenland, India, and South Korea. On the basis of the 7th commandment, sexual perversion. Most evil nations in the world are Greenland, again, number 1. Iceland, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Canada, Spain, Denmark, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Best nations are Ethiopia, Samoa, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. On the basis of Christian persecution, we all know who the usual suspects are. North Korea is the worst. Then comes Somalia, Yemen, Eritrea, Libya, Nigeria, Pakistan, and then Iran. All right, so here are some of the big changes since 2017 that sort of surprised me. Chile was towards the top of the list in 2017. You may remember, I mean, Adam, we did this 8 years ago. China was, big changes. Chile really dropped off. Chile was fairly pro-life in 2017, relatively family-friendly. But that all changed. Get this, Adam. In just 8 years, Chile lifted its outright ban on abortion in 2017. Its birth rate plummeted to 1.17, the lowest in the Americas. They legalized same-sex marriage in 2022. Unbelievable how quickly a nation can fall off the cliff.
Right.
Shifted from first position to 60th position in just 8 years. Shows you how a nation can commit hara-kiri in just 8 years. Incredible. India was doing okay back in 2017, but now India is bad on many accounts. It's a big persecuting nation. Its abortion rate is very high. Its acceptance of homosexuality is on the rise. On almost every account, India has turned bad. In fact, India has turned into the most evil nation on planet Earth in just the last 8 years. Also, Eastern countries have retained some morality due to strong social structures. We talked about Eastern Europe before, like Hungary and Poland and such. But Western Marxist ideologies have done serious damage to Russia, North Korea, China, and Vietnam. Don't forget that Lenin set out to destroy the family. Marx said his objective in the Communist Manifesto was to abolish the family. That's why Russia was the first country to wholesale legitimize abortion and legalize homosexuality in 1917, 1918, 1920 under Vladimir Lenin, and that has resulted in utter devastation to places like Russia, North Korea, China, and Vietnam. Okay, so friends, you can see that worldview makes a big difference.
It does.
The faith that is taught in nations, the ability for nations to hang on to their Christian virtues, their cultural traditions, their Christian traditions are very, very important to the maintenance of some kind of Christian foundations and the retention of a civilization, a morality that can sustain a civilization for the years to come. That is the moral of the story that we take from the Evil Index, or the International Morality Index that we have produced for the year 2025. I leave that with you, and I will say one more time, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And Adam, boy, does that apply to nations around the world today.
It sure does. I am intrigued by the categories you've selected, how you've weighted them, and when you see the list, it's eye-opening. And I think, if nothing else, it's a great moment for homeschool families to have great conversations about the difference in worldviews, and even look at geography and help the young kids place these different countries on the globe. Look at those 8 countries in the Eastern European sector and where they're located, and look at the populations and why is India, so high up there. A lot of their anti-conversion laws, they are trying to penalize Christians at every turn, riots breaking out, mobs beating Christians, driving them out of villages. And we talk about these stories every day, but for you to give us this bird's eye perspective on the evil index of not only states, but internationally is really very interesting.
It's super interesting. I mean, this was some of the most insightful research I've ever conducted. It's opening up a sense where I can understand what's happening around the globe today for me. And I know our listeners and our viewers want to know about what is happening around the world. And that's what we do in theworldview.com on a daily basis. Tune in, my friends, to theworldview.com. We don't just talk about America. We talk about the whole world. And Adam, that's one reason why I called it the worldview, because I wanted, it was a double, message there. Yeah. I wanted, on the one hand, everybody to understand that I was bringing it from a Christian worldview, but I also wanted to establish a view of what was going on in the whole world, right? Because the whole world is under the control and the rule of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he's interested in what's happening in the nations today. And I think we should be interested as well.
Absolutely.
And so that's why we present this insightful research and the daily update on what is happening around the world with theworldview.com. Please tune in on a weekday basis to Adam's program, friends. You can get it at theworldview.com. And of course, pick it up every day on the Generations app. Well, friends, that wraps up this edition of the Generations broadcast. This is Kevin Swanson inviting you back again next time as we continue to lay down a vision for the next generation. This has been a production of the Generations Media Network. For more information, go to generations.org/media.